Welcome to Navigating Advocacy, the true crime podcast that goes beyond storytelling to ignite change and seek justice. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Whitney. As true crime enthusiasts turned passionate advocates, we've seen the power of storytelling raise awareness about unsolved crimes and bring hope to victims and their families. We hope to inspire action and promote positive change within the true crime community.
Our mission is simple. We provide a platform for victims and their families to share their stories, to be heard, and find solidarity. But we don't stop there. We offer practical guidance to our listeners on how they can actively make a difference in their own communities.
In each episode, we'll discuss a different unsolved case. We'll examine the details, highlight potential leads, and strive to spark new interests that may help advance the investigation. Our goal is to reignite hope and ultimately bring justice where it's long overdue.
But this podcast is about more than just a conversation. It's about building a community of like-minded individuals who share a common purpose, making a real difference in the fight for justice. Whether you're a seasoned true crime fan or new to the genre, we invite you to join us on this journey of discovery and advocacy.
Together, we can create a wave of change. We're here to empower you to also become advocates for change, no matter where or who you are. We are Navigating Advocacy.
We discuss topics that may be sensitive to listeners. Discretion is advised. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
After our big, long week at TCPF and our trip to New Mexico.
I do feel like I'm still having that busy weekend hangover, even though it's now been a week. I just feel like I can't catch up.
Same. I'm right there with you. I am feeling a little under the weather today as well. So I'm like, that does not help the situation when I'm ready to get organized and my routine back.
I feel ya. Also, I wanted to point out, over the busy weekend, we had several ideas for new merch. New merch is coming out. We've got the Advocate Barbie shirt out there now, and a new one dropped just this past week. So go check it out and use code FREESHIP is still out there.
Woohoo. All right. So I will just jump into this week's case. We are navigating advocacy near Desolation Peak, which is a prominent mountain located in the North Cascade region of Washington state. It is known for its rugged beauty, remote location, and its historical significance, particularly as the site where the famous Beat Generation author Jack Kerouac spent 63 days as a fire lookout in the summer of 1956. His experiences on Desolation Peak inspired his novel, Desolation Angels. This particular peak rises to an elevation of 6,102 feet, and it offers breathtaking views of the surrounding wilderness. This mountain has inspired not only hikers and backpackers, but those looking for a deeper meaning to life, just like a young woman named Leah Roberts. Leah's life began on a warm summer day on July 23rd of 1976 in the heart of Durham, North Carolina. She arrived as the youngest member of the family, blessed with two older siblings who would significantly shape her life. But as the years unfolded, life began to cast a shadow over Leah's young life. At the tender age of 17, Leah faced her first brush with devastation when her father received a diagnosis of a relentless lung disease. The weight and uncertainty of fear hung heavy, but Leah's spirit remained unbroken. Fate was not done testing the resilience of this young woman. So now she's in college pursuing her dreams. Life would strike again. Her mother would succumb to heart disease. Leah's journey, marked by the profound loss, would go on to reveal her remarkable strength and unwavering determination in the face of adversity. She took some time off of school after her mother's death, but then tragedy would hit Leah again when she was just getting back into school. She was involved in a devastating car accident where she nearly lost her own life. The very next year, her father passed away as well. So many tragic events during her college years definitely left Leah a shell of her former self. She ended up dropping out of college, even though she only had a few months before graduating. She became wrapped up in poetry and photography and other hobbies, including Beat Generation. Have you ever heard of what Beat Generation is? I'd never heard of it. I didn't know what this was when I was reading it.
I absolutely have no clue.
So I had to Google it because it just kept it Beat Generation this, Beat Generation this. Did not know. So apparently it is a literary movement that emerged in the mid 20th century, particularly like the 1950s. Essentially, it was a group of American writers who rebelled against societal norms. Like they were against materialism, the conformity of the post-World War II era. So all of these writers started writing this Beat Generation type of experimentation with language and spirituality. And it was all like critiquing the mainstream culture. So yes. So she got heavily involved in this, and especially that guy's book. There's a couple key figures that Jack Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, and a William Burroughs is all like notable people who wrote during that time frame. So she was living off of her inheritance from her parents. So she didn't really have a job. She wasn't going to school. She was just doing her hobby, trying to find herself after all of these devastating setbacks time and time again over a few years. And that brings us to the crisp evening of March 9th, 2000. Leah's voice danced through the phone as she shared a sisterly connection, casually talking to her sister about the everyday things of life. They laughed and they shared, and it was just a conversation that seemed like any other between sisters. Leah had arrangements to babysit with a dear friend the following day, but Leah would never show up for that. When the sun started to rise on March 10th, Leah was nowhere to be found, and her friend just ended up doing the babysitting job without her. So Leah is also free-spirited. She didn't really have anywhere to be at a certain time. So it was a couple of days before anyone really started to worry because Leah could do what she wanted to do. She was a grown-up. She had no kids. She didn't have anyone to check in with. Like these few days passes and really no one knows where Leah is. So by March 11th, 12th, they're starting to get a little bit worried. They couldn't really get a hold of her. So her sister ventures over to where Leah lived. I believe Leah had a roommate at that point, and she's hoping she can figure out where maybe she took off for a few days, maybe she's doing this. So she went to her apartment looking through things, and her sister finds a scribbled note as she's looking, and it said that Leah was going on a self-discovery journey and that she didn't know when she was going to be back, but she's just trying to find herself. The sister, she's a little bit distraught. She decides to dig deeper into Leah's financial records. She has access to her bank accounts. They'd all done this, especially when the parents passed away. They're like, we need to make sure everyone's good. And Leah being the baby, she gave access to her sister to be able to see her financial statuses of her credit cards, her bank account, that type of thing. They were able to find a trail of cash withdrawals, leading them to believe she had a singular destination, and this was the rugged beauty of the West Coast. So she lives in North Carolina, but now along a trail going west, they see her pulling out cash periodically. And then her sister remembered that Leah loved the allure of Washington State. Leah had dreamt of going here, and then this is where they're like, maybe she went to this place. Days turned into worrisome haze, and their search extended far and wide. But really, they couldn't find Leah. And the last time that they were able to find anything about Leah and her bank accounts is when she used a credit card in Brooks, Oregon, and that was on March 13th. 2 long weeks had passed since Leah's departure from North Carolina, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. She did have some commitments like the babysitting job. I believe she was supposed to go spend some time with her sister as well. And all of these just were pushed to the side, apparently, for this journey that Leah wanted to take. So it did seem off that she would do this without contacting anyone. It was an ordinary day for a pair of joggers that had gone for a run on this scenic trail there in Washington. Their attention was stolen by a peculiar sight, a few articles of clothing amidst the Cascade Mountains scenery. Curiosity lured their gaze downward where they spotted a battered vehicle nestled in the ravine. They called the authorities and the investigation began. As the officers combed through the scene, they found quite a few clues. Blankets hung from the vehicle's windows as if someone sought refuge against the elements inside the vehicle. So yeah, they couldn't get the vehicle out, but it looked like they were blocking off either the sunlight or the rain or the cold by these blankets.
The blankets were inside the
They
vehicle
were
or
hung
outside the
up
vehicle?
against the windows inside the vehicle. Yeah. I'm
Okay.
sure some of
Okay. So almost as if you were sleeping in it?
Yes, and I'm sure
Gotcha.
some of the windows were broken as well. So they weren't rolled up in the blanket inside, but more as the window was already broken,
Mhm.
so now they had to put a blanket up to prevent anything from coming in, type of thing.
Okay.
Leah's life, or what remained of it, lay scattered before their eyes. So we're talking shoes, garments, well-loved books, cherished CDs, even her checkbook, and her prized guitar. This is all around the area or inside the vehicle. Also among the items was Leah's mother's engagement ring. This was a family heirloom that was etched with memories, and her family could not even imagine her leaving the vehicle behind and not taking that piece, that item. Amid all of these items, B, who was Leah's faithful cat, was nowhere to be found. So this cat had to have gone with her. They did find the cat food and cat toys and that kind of thing inside the vehicle, but they did not find the cat. So this just is another question. As authorities continued their search, it led to more questions than answers. A substantial stash of cash. We're talking about $2,500, a gas receipt, and a movie ticket was all found in the vehicle as well. But no sign of any life.
Do they know where the movie ticket was from? Was it from somewhere along her journey, or was it from back home
It
in
was
North
along her
Carolina?
journey, and it was to the movie American Beauty. They also have the gas receipt, which is a gas station along her route there, somewhere in the Oregon, Washington area. The proximity of the vehicle to the road hinted at a possibility that Leah made her way to civilization. So it was off of a ravine down in a little area, but it wasn't far from the road. You literally could see the road. It's not like she would be lost in this forest. You could see the road from where she was at. With each discovery, the mystery deepened. Authorities stated that the vehicle had to be traveling at least 40 miles per hour, and there was no evidence of a driver not being in the vehicle when it went off the side of the cliff. However, zero blood was found at all. Okay, so they're saying it was going at least 40 miles. There wasn't. I don't know how people would push the gas pedal down to make it go off by itself, maybe with a string. I don't know how that works. That's too mechanical for my brain.
Or cruise control?
Yes, or cruise control to let it go off without having a driver in the vehicle. There was no sign of that or anything like that. They had to believe someone drove accidentally or not, drove this off the side of the road. However, no blood, which is very weird. I'm not for sure if the airbags were deployed or not.
I was just wondering because if airbags deployed and hit someone because they were driving, wouldn't there be DNA on the airbag? Or at least touch DNA or something from I mean, there may not be blood because maybe she didn't hit the airbag hard, but or they didn't hit the airbag hard, but there would be something because there would be some sort of contact, I would
Yes,
assume.
agreed. But they do believe if someone
Hmm.
was in the vehicle, they would have been hurt. 40 miles an hour off the side of a cliff usually is not that great.
And also, they wouldn't drive a vehicle off of a cliff and then walk down to it and hang these blankets,
Exactly. Very true. So were the blankets already there before it went off the side?
which doesn't make sense to me
Agreed.
either. If someone was injured and they couldn't make it back up the cliff, I can see where they would hang that
Yeah.
around as protect, but then wouldn't they still be inside
You
the
would
vehicle?
think maybe they did it for a while until they were like felt better enough to climb up. I don't know.
Could be.
Yes.
Questions.
Authorities spoke with a witness that may have run into Leah in the last few days she was active. He stated Leah seemed confused. For some reason, this call was disconnected and the man never called back. They didn't get his name or contact information either, so they were unable to follow up. They don't know if he hung up or something happened, but they did say he seemed a little flustered with the whole situation. Here's a statement from Sergeant Kevin McFadden. He was the leading investigator. He states, with the speed that the vehicle was traveling and the amount of damage to the vehicle, you would anticipate some type of injury to the person inside, at least some type of evidence to indicate contact damage, that the person had been inside the vehicle. There's nothing to indicate the wheel was tied and that it was pushed off the road. We couldn't find any marks on the back that indicated anybody had pushed it to where it was at. If you had somebody driving the vehicle and they jumped out, you would have taken your life into your own hands trying to jump out of the vehicle at that speed. So they're literally thinking of every single scenario that the person, if they were driving it, could they have jumped out? Could another vehicle have pushed it down there? They're trying to figure out how did this car get down there and no signs of an injured person because it's so weird.
I am impressed with their like out of the box thinking. They're trying to figure out the math on how fast they were going to cause this much damage. They're trying to think of all possible scenarios of how did this car get down there, whether it was an accident, whether someone was run off, whether they were run off the road, whether it was intentional. I kudos to them.
Agreed. He also stated, we brought in dogs, we brought in search and rescue, and did a complete grid search up and down the road, but they weren't able to find any indication that anybody had left the vehicle. There was no scent outside of the car. Like, it's as if nobody got out of the car after it went down there, which just adds on to the craziness of this. Leah's friends and family believed she was trying to make her way to that desolation peak, the place that she longed to find herself. This is a disappearance that had many initial theories. Did Leah make it out of the vehicle, then up to the road? Then was she possibly picked up as she hitchhiked by a serial killer or honestly anyone that would want to cause harm to this young woman? Information came out that a man was with Leah before she vanished. There's a few reports or sightings with her being with a man in the days prior to her vehicle being found at a restaurant, a couple of other places. So, who was this man with her? Could the crash have made her already slightly unstable mental illness even more pronounced with amnesia or any other type of medical issue? She was already very fragile considering the things that had happened in the years prior. Did she essentially fake her own death to start something new because of this spiritual awakening that she was wanting? Or did she begin a new life without anything from her past looming over her head?
Do they believe that she would have left those mementos behind? Her parents' wedding ring, is that something that was so dear to her that would be the one thing that she wouldn't have left?
Her family could not even imagine her leaving the vehicle behind and not taking that item.
And, uh, she wouldn't have left, like, the cat food. That's not something that I feel like if you're going to start a new life, because you're on this journey, that's one thing you would take with you, because people aren't going to notice that that's missing if you're trying to disappear. People are going to be like, oh my gosh, she took the cat food.
Exactly. Or the cash. It had already been taken out. You would think she would take the $2,500 in cash because she's going to need that money.
Yeah.
And it was already being tracked anyway. So, like, it wouldn't have been any harm just to use that money. Very weird.
Yeah. And robbery's not a motive, or the cash would be gone also.
Exactly. And she had her guitar in there. There are things that people would want to take. Even if they like didn't ransack the whole vehicle, if the money was in, like, let's say the console of the car or something like that. Yes. So in 2006, Leah's vehicle was re-examined. And I have to say, I did not see this coming when I first started researching this case. But upon the re-examination of the car, they found a specific wire had been cut. This would allow the car to continue to accelerate without anyone pressing the gas pedal. So this,
Oh, shit.
I know, I was totally shocked about this. I was like, there's no way. But this explains why the dogs couldn't track anything. This explains why there was no blood.
I also, coming as a mechanic's daughter, I didn't know that was even a possibility. You just cut one wire and it's going to cause it to accelerate.
Or continue to accelerate. Maybe,
On its
is
own?
it cutting the brake line maybe? And then you just can't slow down and you keep going. I don't know.
Maybe.
That's how they worded it in the article I read about it. And you know me, I'm like not mechanically inclined. I'm like, sure, that sounds good. You cut one wire and it just, I don't know how cars work.
It just sounds like a movie
Does.
plot.
Exactly. Okay. It's just crazy. So this really confirmed the earlier suspicions that no one had been in the car when it left the road, and thus it like been purposely wrecked. They also found a fingerprint under the hood and some male DNA on articles of Leah's clothing. This is like bombshell of information that proves someone else most likely was involved in Leah's disappearance. This is insane. Like, you want to talk about clues? Because usually those re-examinations, I feel like they don't find much. And then now they found all of this. That's absolutely insane. There's a few, I don't want to say name suspects or like person of interest. One guy that was like a mechanic in the area, and there were things that really pointed towards him. But I know his fingerprint didn't match the hood. So there hasn't been really anyone else named,
Okay.
and I'm assuming they obviously don't have that fingerprint or DNA in any database. Otherwise, we would know, pinpoint who may have either helped. I am definitely leaning towards someone had a hand in this, and it was foul play.
Staging this big crash, and it feels more foul play than suspicious death, or like you said, just a missing person. There's something more to
Agreed.
this.
I completely agree. Leah was 5'6" tall, and she weighed about 130 pounds. She had sandy blonde hair and blue eyes. She has a surgical scar on her right hip. She also has a metal rod inside the entire length of her right femur. She has a beauty mark above her right upper lip, and her ears were pierced. If you or someone you know has information regarding Leah's disappearance, you can contact Whatcom County Sheriff's Office at 360-778-6600. And that's like the super mysterious disappearance of Leah Roberts. This was actually a case that was suggested to us by a listener, and I had never heard of it. And it is one of those mind-blowing ones that I'm like, what the heck happened to her?
I have no words because I have all the questions that we don't.
Sorry. There's nothing else that is out there. I think the police did a great job in this case, trying to think outside of the box. But honestly, it's just, you'd think that there's just more. They have information. They have evidence now. They just have to find the person to match it to.
Exactly. Maybe this is another good way to make sure, if you have done the DNA testing or the 23andMe, all of those, GED-matched type tests to upload them because you don't know what familial DNA could connect to it.
Exactly. Completely agree. So that was Washington.
5-0. Just by listening to our content, you too are advocating for justice for these families. Thank you for making a difference in their lives as well.
We want to share a few ways you can support us to continue our mission. You can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $5 per month, or a simple rate and review on your favorite podcast platform helps us get in front of someone who may know something.
We will continue to shed a light on the forgotten victims, untangle the webs of deceit, and examine the eerie coincidences that make these cases so compelling.
We believe that working together can affect change and create a world where victims are heard, justice is served, and communities are empowered to make a difference, no matter where or who they are.